Hello, this is Cuckoo. I'm right here at Elektron's booth at NAMM 2018, and I'm fortunate enough to be right here with Simon, who is also one of the key developers of the sound engine. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Hi, Cuckoo. Very nice to have you here.
Finally,
you know, after the Heathrow gate.
Heathrow was flooded, so I came in late, yeah. But in the meanwhile, while I was in mid-air, you released a new synthesizer.
Yeah, big day for us, big day for us. We got the Digitone, the new FM synthesizer, 8-voice polyphonic, 4-operator FM synth. Got a few magic things sparkle on top, of course, because, you know, we always do things a little bit different, and this one kind of follows, you know, the Digitakt way of being a little bit nicer to work with and approachable and stuff. So we try to, you know, accommodate for that a lot. So the FM part only has like 16 main parameters, so it's very focused, but you know, you can still make really cool sounds with it.
Yeah, and anyone who has been watching my channel, they might know that I'm a big FM synthesis lover, which is Simon has a proof of that here too. It's like
it's been like an obsession for me for many years. It began with like the record Atavism by SND in 2009, I think, and Mark from that group has actually made some presets, so it's all come full circle for me. So this is like a dream project.
I was browsing the presets, and there were like tons of presets.
Yeah.
That's amazing. They sound great.
5% of them, so I'm sorry if some of them suck.
No, they sound great. So let's dive into it. Where do we start?
It's like our signature intro sound. Which is like a pretty typical FM pad, but if you notice here at the end, you hear like this drifting going on. And that's actually the harmonics of the sine tone changing. So what we did with this is we sort of combined a lot of paradigms from different synthesis methods. So a lot of FM synthesizers typically have like different waveforms and stuff, but we really didn't want to go for like a sawtooth or a square wave because they're very sharp, and you know it gets too much of it with FM, and you know
the mathematics of FM favors smooth changes. That's when the angle of the audio wave always changes.
Less complex waveforms makes, you know, a bit of easier and nicer sounds in the end, because 4 operators might sound like, oh, why doesn't it have a 6 like the DX7? But you know, with this sort of system where you have the different wave shapes and LFOs and filters and, you know, distortion and you know,
the Mega Drive had 4. The Mega Drive was based on the Z81.
TX81 said, you know, some of the best ones had 4 operators, and personally I think that's like the perfect amount of operators, because it gives you like a really good overview of what's going on, and it's really easy to get the sounds you want, you know. And many operators, I think it really, for like perfect electric pianos, it's great, but maybe not for the kind of synth sounds you want to get out of it. Maybe it's just more of an issue then, I think. So yeah, so if we take a look at the graphics maybe, yeah, I can hold it. Yeah, get that zoom on. Yeah, so here we see our algorithm, which is always present on the FM editing pages. This is just one of those things that really makes a difference. You know, you always can keep track of what's going on. And as you notice, it says A, C, B, and B. So these are the operators, and C is always used as a carrier, so that's why it's called C. And the 2 Bs, that's a group, so they are always controlled by the same parameters. So if you take a look at this ratio section here, the B ratios have a single knob, and they, you know, similar to some other, like the OP1, it revolves around the numbers, kind of to give you like all combinations possible. And this is just many of the like macro mappings we did to sort of make things a bit more easier.
Yeah.
So as you hit the maximum value, it turns over for the next operator, which really gives you all the control you need without making it too much. So as I said, the harmonics is a pretty interesting part of it. So at the default here is the sine wave. And if I turn the knob one direction, you will see how it starts to change.
Yeah.
So now we're adding a partial, and this is done first in like the first order series. This is just strict additive synthesis, the oldest method around, where you just sum sine waves together. So this is like another concept thrown in there without any hassle, and that's really nice, I think. So as I turn this more and more, I'm adding more and more partials, just sine waves. And it starts to approximate like a sawtooth. So instead of just being the sine wave. And this list goes on for many different like constellations of partials. So like some of them, like these down are like bell tones already.
Yeah. Some of those look like stuff that you would make with FM, and it's already there.
I actually hand pixeled these. It took me 2 hours to get all the correct correct waveforms. It was a busy Sunday night. Yeah, so I mean, shout out to the pixel art community. Oh, it's still relevant, thankfully. Yeah, and then we have detune, and this one is also a macro parameter, and also quite a nice little animation going on. As you turn these 3 bars, will start to skew, and this is just a visual indication of detuning. And this actually just detunes the modulating operators. So if I start applying some FM modulation here.
So he's flicking through the different pages here, and one of the pages is synth page 1, and then synth page 2, and they got sub pages.
Yeah, so synth page 2 is where you have your envelopes, but we'll get into them soon. So the detune applies a bit of an offset to those that are typically used as modulators. And the reason for doing this is because this is also like part of making it really simple to use, is that with FM you can really, it's easy to kind of lose where you're trying to go, and sounds kind of just explode on you, and you get a lot of enharmonics and detune the sound. But with this detune parameter, we made sure that it won't actually detune the bass frequency, it will only detune the modulation. So if I turn it, you start hearing like this drifting in the sound. I think I have a better example. It's always difficult to do things on the show floor,
Yeah. We hear there's so much noise already here, so we can't hear.
Hard to focus. So this one has a lot of detune for like this, the drifting you hear. And if it's just straight, it's kind of a lot more static. But with this one, you can really get these wobbly tones. And if you pull it up to the max, it really offsets in quarters of ratios, which is great for bell tones and stuff like that. So it's really a very thought out system. Everything is just, it's there for a reason. It's designed in a very particular way to just make everything flow. Yeah.
But could you, like, if we start out and make a sound, we can select what kind of algorithm, we can select the different...
To the default again. The different algorithms, I mean, they just change the routing of the operators. Yeah. And when you see a dotted line here, it indicates that this operator, it's sent out full volume to the filter. And this is just one of those things, with the typical FM synth, it would be like a whole synthesizer in itself, where each operator's volume, you have to keep it, the resulting amplitude of the sound is affected by the modulation as well, stuff like that. But this one, it just outputs the tone full volume, and this is just to kind of treat the FM engine as a more tone generator, strict, to be able to make use of the filter more easily and do the amp thing, with the ADSR at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the algorithms are, some classics like these two are just, what you would expect. This one as well, very classic. And as you can see, all of them has two outputs. So if I change this one to 2 and 4, which is a nice ratio relationship, I just open these up a bit. So here we hear, what my tattoo sounds like actually. Yeah, like this. That's just one operator.
The tattoo is actually live. It's a live spectrum.
It's doing its thing. We actually measured the wavelengths. It's 21 kilohertz, so you can't hear it, unfortunately. Maybe bats will like it. I don't know. So, and if let's do this one instead because they're split. So this one, I can mix in the second pair here with the X and Y. And it kind of becomes like a wavetable synth where you have like the interpolation between two timbres. And of course some feedback to make it a bit sharper. And for example with this one, you get this tone on one end and this one at the other.
Yeah.
Maybe some detune on that.
So the XY is...
Yeah, it's so quick and it's so much fun to just explore with it, which I think is very rare for an FM synth. Like, I've used them all basically, and that's kind of where all of this comes from. It's just many years of using FM synthesizers and kind of figuring out, what don't we need? And I think that's been the problem all the time. It comes from a history of trying to replicate acoustic instruments, which is very hard. And requires like really complex, intricate setups, and you can still do some of that here, but I don't think that's really the focus of electronic music these days. You don't want to sound like something acoustic, you want to sound like a synthesizer, because electronic music has grown, and it's 30 years ago since the first commercial FM synth was available, and I think it's high time that we start taking things away rather than adding,
But one thing that Elektron is renowned for, and this is where you come in and add something to this, is the sequencer.
Yeah.
And to have access to all of these parameters in the sequencer is super cool, I think.
One thing that we were all like, day one, we were like, the algorithm should be parameter lockable. So that's kind of been what everything was designed around. So you can change the algorithm per step. You can change everything per step, of course. That's our thing. And on top of that, you can change the patch per step. So, have a drum track, no big deal. That's no problem. And that sort of versatility just also, lends itself to making like really complex stuff on it. It's not just a 4-part, 8-voice synthesizer. It's like a full-on FM groovebox, if you will.
Yeah, and that's. I'm really excited about this.
Well, I'm really excited to show it.
Yeah. Having been a fan of FM synthesis since the Mega Drive, in my case.
Fine system. Yeah. I've actually made music with the Mega Drive as well.
Yeah, there is some sort of music cartridge for it.
The Gen MDM. It's very nice. Yeah. But so I tried most of them.
But let's hear some of the. Let's play some patches or some music and see what. Yeah, some patterns. Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you want to hear, sir?
I heard a drum and bass thing, and I heard a Nintendo thing, and both of them show like the two totally different, spectrums.
So, at Elektron, everybody's sort of a musician, which is awesome. We've got sounds from like our technical writer, the person who writes the manual made some of the best sounds in there. So that's kind of where that's Elektron for you. So let's listen to this awesome.
This sounds really cool.
And, then we have a master distortion that is really rough if you want to. So.
Whoa.
Yeah. Really crunches it together. It's kind of tape saturation like, yeah. Then we have like some kind of depressing and chilling Boards of Canada hip hop or whatever. So it does like all those cool nice. and of course the product presentation video soundtrack. You know, Mr. Data line on the turntables. Some more poppy stuff. And of course for you, Cuckoo, Wrecking Crew theme from the NES.
It sounds really great. And these are sounds that you don't normally think FM sounds.
This one I probably spent a day on.
Yeah, getting that kind of triangle, almost.
Yeah.
Hitting the right overtone there.
Yeah, it's actually quite. I mean, what you do is that you have a pretty low end sine wave and you modulate that with a very high tone, very subtly, and it sounds kind of like aliasing. So I mean, for me, this really shows some of the power of FM, because it can essentially turn into a whole different type of synthesizer. It's not just those metallic or smooth sounds. It's also
I'm going to ask you a boring question. Sure. On the whole show floor, we're seeing this keyboard here, Arturia keystep. Yeah. It's really good.
It's very good. I mean, the reason why we have it, I'm glad you asked. Yeah. No, but the reason why we have it is because we have a lot of modulation mapping, and the Arturia keystep sends like aftertouch and all that stuff. So if I go into the sound settings here, I can go into, for example, aftertouch, and I can see how this is coming in to the synth, and I can map that to a bunch of like all the different settings we saw before. I have no idea what will work for this sound, but maybe the mix. So yeah, I mean, we have that for. We have the mapping for breath control and modulation, wheel, velocity.
And this keyboard has got like a what do you call it, strip, and a pitch strip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see.
Yeah, so that's why we have the key step going. It's very portable.
I guess like with the Digitac, which is the exact same form factor, you're doing the same kit per pattern strategy?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it's the same sort of fast workflow where you just get going and get the pattern going, and all the sounds, everything is contained in it, save your project by just hitting the save project button, simple things like that,
And the same control all feature, which you can...
It has control all. It has control all, which kind of scares me. It scares me a little bit.
With FM, you can go bonkers.
I mean, right. But still very exciting. I mean, if you know, like it's very good for like using the filters and stuff, and kind of with FM synth, it really goes haywire, which is, I mean, really fun. I mean, sometimes it's surprisingly good results, and sometimes it will just turn into noise, but that's with the nature of Control All, it's supposed to just be really cool.
I think it's cool to accent something and then to immediately return to the bass.
Yeah, the quick parameter reload. And
but if there is parameter locking going on and you're doing Control All, like the parameter lock has the priority, right?
So parameter locks always prioritizes from the sequencer, so
you're kind of safe if in some regard.
Yeah. So your parameter locks will always sound like how they are locked, except for the parameters that are not locked. So there's some interesting duality there. Yeah.
Cool. Is this something in particular you'd like to add for this?
I actually didn't talk about the envelopes.
Yeah.
And those are an original design from us. And these are ADE envelopes, attack, decay, end. And what end is the end level. And this is the level where decay is going towards. So in FM, I mean, you typically don't want the sound to end at no modulation at all, because that's just a sine tone, and that gets muddy and boring really quickly. So with this one, as you can hear, the timbre is still there. And if I pull this to the bottom, it's just a sine wave. So this is a pretty flexible envelope in only 3 parameters. You got your attack, of course, and we have a sub page, which is also interesting to talk about, with some more like settings. You know, this one you don't need to tinker with, but it's pretty cool. For example, you can turn off the retrig function to make it essentially a gated envelope. So now it will decay on release instead of on trig. And combining these two with those different setups, you can do a lot of cool variants of sound. And another really neat thing, if I introduce the second one here, is that we have a delay parameter for the envelopes, which just delays the time after triggering when it's actually gonna start going through the envelope modulation. So if I listen to this, you can hear how it kind of kicks in a bit later. And this is really nice on the Arpeggiator, which we can talk about next. Here I got like this little patch. And I have some delay set on the second operator pair here. And if I pull this up, you start hearing these plucks coming in.
Yeah.
Which is just another way of doing like pretty intricate things, and it's always synced to the tempo as well. So it's really good for sequencing, and that's of course also parameter lockable and everything.
And also the filters. There are like 2 filters in a way.
So exactly as on the Digitakt, we have a multi-mode filter, the LP2 and HP2, the 2-pole filters. Those are directly from the Digitakt, and we also have a new ladder filter, the low pass 4, which is a 4-pole filter. I don't know if probably not the best. Well, I mean, let's do a new sound maybe. Take one of the algorithms where we isolated one of the operators to quickly make a sawtooth by feedbacking it. You know, FM is the best way to make sounds ever. So as you can hear, you know, sawtooth, no big deal, no big deal. We got it. So here's the LP4, and it's just a lot more snappier than the 2-pole. And if you want those fatter sounds, this one is a bit more open. So this one for bass sounds, it's really lovely.
Yeah, and
we throw on some unison. Oh, and of course with FM, everything is always kept in phase. That means that the waveform is always retriggering from the same point, which is typically maybe not something you desire for sounds that will sound a little bit analog. You can turn that off, and you get a bit more, you know, that super saw-ish things.
And then one thing I noticed is sometimes with FM, which can tend to be a bit sharp, or sometimes you make a good sound, but you'd like more bass, for instance. Yeah. Now that we have 2 filters that you can stack, you know, on top of each other.
Yeah, exactly. So aside from this filter, we have a second one, which is sort of the typical Elektron bass width filter, but 1-pole, which is more used for EQ duties. So if I think this has too much low end, I can just remove that. Or too much high end, that's fine too. And I can kind of dial in, it's like a bandpass in this mode. I can really dial in the frequency where I want it. And this is just to get a really good mix. And as you said, with FM, the frequencies, they kind of go wild, you know? And like back in the old days, I remember a lot of patches on like the DX7, there were those like analog emulations, you know? They were really intricate because you had to really, you know, simulate a low pass filter is really tough with FM. And you have to like tweak everything super much to get that, but here you just have to pull down the filter, and I think that's really brilliant. That's what makes it so fast and nice to use. And yeah, the regular ADSR at the end, and this just shapes the overall sound, you know, the dynamics. It's just one of those things that should be there, you know, simple as that. No need to worry about multi-stage business. You know, you have your sound going out. You know, you do what you do. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And all of this, there is like an LFO too, and you could, how many LFOs are there?
LFOs.
Two?
Yeah.
And you could send these to any of the parameters, I guess.
Yeah. And yeah, for kicks and stuff like that, percussion sounds. We have, of course, pitch for everything, so that everything is, sweeped, and you can do this kind of.
But it's really convenient too that you have the filters, because sometimes it can be tricky to make a good kick drum. But then, you got the filters, you can boost the bass, and
it is kind of.
And the drive as well, right?
Sorry?
The drive.
Yeah, we have a drive per track as well, which is a bit angry. I mean, and then you have the master drive as well, which is almost angrier, But you can go from subtle to just mashing it quite easily. Yeah, and it's just a lot of fun. I think a master overdrive is just one of those quintessential things that really makes everything kind of mesh together really well. For me, at least, I really like applying just a little bit of it to kind of get a nice feel of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Digitone. The power of... No, that's upside down. Overbridge. Okay. Yeah. Let's mention Overbridge as well. Let's mention Overbridge.
I always forget this, but yeah, I'm always so focused on the synth part. But yeah, Overbridge. Yeah, we'll have Overbridge integration, which we're working on right now. It's looking really good. We're gonna display everything even clearer than on this, of course. As is the tradition on Overbridge, and it will multi-track and stuff like that. Yeah, it will be really nice. Yeah.
Overbridge means you can connect it to a computer, to Ableton Live, or whatever you want, and have access to everything in your DAW, D-A-W. Yeah?
Yep.
Cool. Elektron.
Yeah, we're celebrating 20 years today as well.
Oh,
Not
today?
today.
Yeah, this year. Cool, yeah. Elektron 20 years, that's nice.